Hi everyone. It has been a long time since I've done a Q&A session, and I'm so excited to be back doing them. Now, earlier this year, when my neck of the woods we had COVID restrictions, I was able to do Q&A sessions every day, and it was so much fun. But then when the restrictions eased, I was out doing photo shoots and so on. However, we've sort of gone into more restrictions, so there's more at home time. So I'm going to be doing a lot more Q&A sessions. So if you have any photo related questions, just leave them below and I'm happy to answer them. Okay, so this question has been probably the most popular question I've had, and I just keep on replying. So I was thinking, you know what, I'll just do a quick answer. And it has to do with lens sharpness. Now, lens sharpness is a very ambiguous term, mainly because we could be talking about two completely different things, okay? So often I have to realize that if someone is new to photography, then they will say, Mark, my lens isn't sharp because my picture isn't sharp. And oftentimes I would take a look at the picture and just ask what's going on. What processes are you doing using a tripod and so on. And often there is a confusion between depth of field sharpness and physical lens sharpness. So that's what I'd like to explain today in this quick session. Now, a depth of field sharpness terminology. I assume that most of you understand what depth of field is, and that simply means the ability or the amount of let's just reverse it. We would say how much blur is in the background. This is really easy terminology. Now, if we have a scenario where we want to have a nice portrait and the person's face is good and sharp and the background's blurry, we could say that this photo has a shallow depth of field. Okay, so we have good lens sharpness or sharpness on the face and a good blur in the background. However, that sharpness of the face is not equivalent to what we'd call optical sharpness of the lens. And this would be the quality, the manufacturing quality of the lens. That would be how, the good quality of the glass or the how precise the manufacturer created that lens. Okay? So what we have are two completely different things when we're talking about sharpness, and it's very important that we're not confused about that. When people are talking about sharpness with regards to depth of field, they're referring, of course, to the subject being sharp in relation to potentially a blurry background. Or even if they choose, say, for example, f11, f16, f22, they could still say that the depth of field sharpness is excellent on the subject, being a face or whatever, and it is also good in the background. Now, when we're talking about optical sharpness, this is something completely different, and this would be the quality, like I said, of the manufacturing process. So, for example, if you have a professional lens, you have a very high degree of lens sharpness. Again, this has nothing to do with depth of field, okay? Now, cheaper lenses, for example, potentially kit lenses. However, I don't want to demean kit lenses because they are usually really good these days, especially Fujifilm kit lenses. That is a kit lens that usually would come with a DSLR, for example, would have less optical sharpness than more expensive, like a professional lens. Okay, so just to wrap this up, there are two types of lens sharpness, and they're completely different, and I just wanted to make sure that that terminology was pretty solid. Also, one more thing. Whenever we're talking about a lens's sweet spot, we're talking about the f-stop, or you'd say aperture, where the lens has the most amount of sharpness around the perimeter of the picture. Let me give you an example. Take a look up here, down here, over here, and here. Now, if this was a normal photo taken with my normal camera, there's a potential that the corners, the extreme corners of the photo are not perfectly sharp. Now, usually with most lenses, unless it's a terrible lens, the center will be sharp. Now, lenses come with usually what we call a sweet spot, and that's often f11 or f8. Now f11 and f8 is sort of the midpoint when you're talking about an aperture, because a lot of times we would have a lens with f2.8, f4, f5.6, f8, f11, f16, f22, sometimes f32. Now when you get to the extremes of your apertures, say for example f32 or, and the opposite, f1.8 or f1.4 or f2.8, then what happens potentially is that the perimeter of the picture is a little bit soft, okay? So usually if you need to photograph, say for architecture, or you're doing a flat lay product shot, or you're photographing something two-dimensional like artwork, it's really important to pick the lens's sweet spot where the perimeter of the composition, the perimeter of the photo will be good and sharp. And again, that's around f8 or f11, depending on your lens. And please keep in mind that a lens's sweet spot has nothing to do, like we would say that corner or that edge or perimeter sharpness has nothing to do with the various types of sharpening that we've talked about already in this video. It's sort of like a third topic that I wanted to bring up as well. Okay, so I hope that helps. And if you have any photography related questions, I'm re-kickstarting this Q&A session, and I'm really excited about being able to do more Q&As with all of you. Okay, so that's it for me. I'm saying goodbye, and we'll talk soon.